Hello everyone, my name is Kylie Lange and I'm incredibly excited to be speaking to you all today. Most of you either know me pretty well or you would at least say hi if you saw me in a grocery store. Well, at least hope you would say hi if you saw me in a grocery store. Anyway, to give you a little background, I'd like to tell you a bit about myself. I like to think of myself as a mover and a shaker. I don't spend much time kicking back, letting the world spin me around. I like to take my reality into my own hands. I've always liked being behind the wheel, but I haven't always taken responsibility for my thoughts, my feelings, my actions. I believed what so many of us do, that I was a product of my surroundings. To bring a little psych into this, I was operating with an external locus of control. That is the belief that events in one's life, whether good or bad, are caused by uncontrollable factors such as the environment, other people, or even a higher power. Now that mindset is not entirely false, but it can be limiting. I blame my unhappiness on school, bad friends, relentless parents. Even worse, I thought my happiness came from the outside too. Good grades, nice weather, pretty clothes. My parents were pleased, and my friends and I were getting along. Everything was fine and dandy. But the second one of those slipped from my grasp, so did the happiness. Just this past year, I've experienced a major shift in my psyche. I like to call it my not quite quarter-life crisis. I hated school because I thought it was all pointless, and I felt uncomfortable around people I'd been around since kindergarten. I started hanging out with a crowd that made me feel worthless, and I thought that their approval was equivalent to my self-image. I was critical and snappy to the ones I loved most, and that made me feel even worse. Dance had been my escape and my outlet to clear out the junk since before I could remember, but even that wasn't helping anymore. Everyone and everything exhausted me, and I spent far too many nights sitting on my floor and crying about how dark my life had become. I couldn't wait to go to sleep at night, and waking up the next morning often came too soon. The joy that had previously accompanied me only appeared in far-off glints and glimmers, and I knew something wasn't right. Little did I know that all I ever needed to fix this diseased way of thinking is on these 138 pages. Ladies and gents, I would like to introduce you to the book that single-handedly changed my life. It very literally rewired my brain. It is called The 4 Agreements by Miguel Ruiz, and I believe that this book holds not only the power to change my life, but to change lives across the globe. I'm not exaggerating when I say that this book can bring about world peace and plant the seeds of happiness into the minds of all human beings on this earth. Sounds far-fetched, doesn't it? I promise you, it's not. The key is its simplicity. Before I go any deeper, I feel the need to acknowledge that this is not a religion. Rather, it is a collection of ancient Toltec wisdom that's been guiding our ancestors for centuries, and it still applies just as much today. So no matter what you believe or how set in your ways you are, I invite you to open your mind and hear me out. This book just might change your life too. Agreement number 1. Oh, that's 4 agreements. Agreement number 1. Be impeccable with your word. According to Ruiz, this is the holy grail of the agreements, and following this alone will promote drastic change. That being said, it is also the hardest. So what does this mean exactly, to be impeccable with your word? It's not about keeping promises, which was my first impression. It's about ridding your mind of any thoughts that are harmful towards yourself or others. To clarify, your word, with a capital W, is anything you say, do, think, feel, or even just give your attention to. It's not just about how you speak. Your word is a very special thing because you have complete control over it. When I read this, I was all, yes, control. The control freak in me was jumping up and down. But I'll warn you, overpowering your own mind is no simple task. This means shutting out that thought about how you look fat in your dress or how you suck because you missed the basket at the big game. Those thoughts don't serve you, so they don't fall into the impeccable category. This also means putting an end to high school's favorite pastime, gossip. I'm sure you've all heard the saying, what Susie says of Sally says more of Susie than of Sally. But even knowing this, we want to spread the poison they gave us a taste of. But doing so does just that. It spreads the poison. The comfort isn't actually comforting us. It's a cover-up that perpetuates the vicious cycle of negativity that's plaguing our society. And the truth is, others are not capable of wronging us, but I'll go into greater detail on that in the next agreement. We are so invested in how others live their lives, and we love to talk about it, because it makes us feel connected to the world. However, this very act pushes us further away from people and builds up walls of distrust and guilt. So if we can't talk about people, what can we talk about? What exactly makes the word impeccable? This is something that I've struggled with and I continue to struggle with. From months of research, observation, and mainly just putting it into practice, I've come up with a few possibilities. Ideas, positive thoughts, encouragements, plans, reflections. When you dig deeper, you'll come up with a larger list than you would have expected. One of my favorite quotes by Eleanor Roosevelt is, "Great minds discuss ideas. Average minds discuss events. Small minds discuss people." So there's step one. Stop talking about other people and speak with integrity. Put positive intentions behind your word and watch it begin to shape the world around you. Agreement number 2. Don't take anything personally. Ruiz is a big advocate for the first agreement, but me and Oprah were the real cheerleaders for the second. This statement means that everything a person does is only a response to their own reality, and it has nothing to do with anyone else. This applies to absolutely everything. I constantly find myself getting offended by the actions of others, and all it takes is this simple agreement to bring me back to peace. If someone tries to call me out on a flaw, it is only true if I believe it about myself, thus making it my own reality. When this flaw only existed in the other person's reality to begin with. They could be telling me I have an annoying personality or that I'm bad at dancing, but that is only their word, and I don't have to make it my own. They have their own reasons for saying hurtful things, whether it be jealousy, they're projecting flaws they see in themselves, or they just wish to pass up the poison inside of them to another host. Even when whatever that reason may be, it is of no importance to me, and neither is what they said. That is, unless they take it personally. Even when an attack seems so personal, someone's directly putting down your character or giving you a punch in the face, don't take it personally. Ruiz takes it to the extreme and says even if someone pulled a gun on you, that's not to be taken personally either. It sounds too simple, and it is. The first time I utilized this agreement, I fought it. My thought process went something like this. How dare she be late? Doesn't she know I have somewhere to be? That is so rude and disrespectful to me. But that's her actions, and they actually have nothing to do with me, so it can only affect me if I let it. How can I be angry if I know her actions aren't associated with me? I went back and forth for a while before I finally alleviated my anger by deciding her tardiness was her doing, and it was actually not aimed at me. I thought this was pure magic, to explain myself out of a potential conflict or grudge. Not taking anything personally includes compliments. If you buy someone a milkshake and they tell you you are the kindest person they ever met, don't believe it because they said it. Believe it because you know it about yourself. They're saying this because of how you acted and made them feel. They could just as easily turn around and say, you were the most selfish person I ever met, if you don't want to give them a sip of your milkshake. Likewise, their response to your action is them taking your actions personally. When you're buying them a milkshake or refusing to give them a sip, this gives you a choice in how you see yourself, and it will make you cautious in how you react to others' insults and defenses. It will also make you more inclined to be impeccable with your word. Agreement number 3, don't make assumptions. This agreement is rooted in misunderstanding and the failure to communicate our feelings. Since we live day in and day out hearing the little voice in our head creating this internal dialogue, we assume everyone else can hear it too and know how we feel. But the problem is, no one can actually tune into this internal dialogue unless you share it with them. This agreement has made me intolerant of playing games. I'm straightforward about how I feel, and I want others to do the same with me. I don't sit around expecting someone else to pick up on hints about if I'm angry or if I like them, because that would mean making assumptions. When others try to play this guessing game with me, I get frustrated and bored, and I just get myself out of the situation. This takes away the need for fighting because the number one source of conflict is misunderstanding, and it has no place as long as assumptions are not being made. Ask questions, clarify. Don't rely on the notions you created in that great big brain of yours because it's very likely that you're just wrong. Agreement number 4, always do your best. This statement takes 2 main forms, trying your best to maintain the 4 agreements and just trying your hardest in general. These agreements are very simple, yes. You could literally read this book to a 5-year-old and they would understand what you're saying. But upholding them, that's another story. All of our lives, we are pushed and pulled in different directions, and we allow others to tell us about how the world is. And naturally, we believe them. Eventually, all of what they told us become agreements that we make in our own mind. And we believe them about agreements that we make in our heads about ourselves in the outside world, and most of them don't serve us. In order to dismantle these false agreements, we have to begin by making new ones. This cannot happen instantly. I speak for myself and so many other readers of the Four Agreements when I say that even knowing the answers and knowing how many benefits they have, I still slip up. I catch myself gossiping or criticizing or assuming someone thinks the way I do, and that's okay. When this happens, it's important to remind yourself that you're not a bad person. It's all part of the very long journey to living out of pure love. The poison you stockpiled will remain wedged in the crevices for many years to come, so just take a toothbrush and start slowly scrubbing it away. And just like any good preschool teacher would tell you, always put your best foot forward in everything you do. Know that whether you're writing an essay, cleaning up dog poop, or feeding hungry bellies, that you're doing everything you possibly could do in that moment. I can honestly say every single piece I wrote this year was my best work. I'm proud of each and every one of them. I do things with passion or not at all. When I'm finished, I feel happier because I know I spent all of what I had to give, and that produces a satisfaction like no other. Going back to psychology, this is a practice known as intrinsic motivation. This means the motivation originates within the individual rather than from an external reward, such as money or grades. Not working for a paycheck, but working to feel fulfilled. Not running to win the race, but because you love to. This is the exact opposite of extrinsic motivation, which is fueled by outside factors. It has been proven in research with children and adults alike that extrinsic motivation eventually will lead to loss of interest and purposelessness. On the other hand, intrinsic motivation is a strong component of what makes a happy person. So do your best and the rewards will come flooding back to you. And that's it. These four agreements that you make with yourself are all you need to live a happy, fulfilling, loving life. This book gives you the tools, but it's up to you to provide the labor. This is work that will never cease to exist, but that is not to say it won't be rewarding. With each and every small victory, you will find yourself feeling happier and more at peace with yourself and the world around you. And as you begin to radiate this happiness, you will attract those who are drawn to positivity. So now I'm here, a year after the depression settled in, and I can honestly say, I kicked its ass. It's packed up its things and moved on when it realized my mind was no longer a suitable environment for negativity and suffering. Those who didn't add to my happiness dropped out from under my radar. My true friendships became even stronger. I made relationships with new people, rekindled old ones, and they're honestly all some very extraordinary people. I'm kinder, I'm more understanding, and anger most often eludes me. I always put my best foot forward, and I feel more energized and satisfied by the tasks I complete. I'm not bragging, I'm just sharing how drastic simply changing your thoughts and actions can be. Now just imagine if we shared these lessons on a mass scale. What would happen if schools began teaching the Four Agreements to children? Businesses attended conventions about them, cultures around the world worked them into their values. We would see a new generation of more prosperous people who would grow to be more effective leaders, strategic creative thinkers, and ideal team members. Our relations with other nations who we cannot seem to cooperate with would become alliances. Wars would have no place. People would lose their need for conflict and spend their new free time cleaning up the messes that past civilizations made. Religious views, political parties, and race would no longer divide. Terrorism would be obliterated. Trade and economic prosperity would soar. No one would be labeled as inferior, and no one would miss a meal. The list goes on and on. But I alone cannot make these changes. I'm responsible for me and only me. I can only share the beauty and the purpose the Four Agreements have given to my life in hopes that others will want to apply it to their own. I invite you to read this book and do the same. Through this spreading of information, I believe we can begin to suck out the poison and replace it with a light that's brighter than the sun and every star in the sky. And I thought this really applied. This is by Dallas Clayton, who Ms. Bach showed me.